All right, so I found this article on Kotaku, and it's talking about Sony's PlayStation 5. And I think this is kind of interesting. Now, mind you, this article's about a week old, right? We've had a lot of things to talk about since then. But it's kind of interesting because they're talking about the PlayStation 5 entering the later stages of its life cycle, which to me seems a little premature. I think that has probably another 2, 3 years, maybe 4, pushing it now. So let's get into this article. Let's talk about it, and I'm gonna put some of my thoughts and spins on some of the things that this article really brings up. So let's talk about it. Let's get into it, and I want to hear y'all's opinion as we go on. Let's go. Bummer. PS5 entering the latter stages of its life cycle, Sony says. Kind of feels early to be calling it on the newest PlayStation console, yet here we are. Um, and to me, I'm really surprised that they're doing it this early, considering that 2020, 2021, 2022, you cannot find a PlayStation 5 out in the wild. If you did, you better go play the lottery, man. Like, that's what I really felt like when it came to the PS5. And even today, I still say it's very, very hard to get a PlayStation 5 compared to Xbox Series X. Like Xbox Series X, I could go out and I could potentially find one or two if I go to like 2 or 3 different Walmarts. But right now with the PlayStation 5, I think I've only seen 2 out in the wild. Now, man, I live in the middle of nowhere, California, but it's neither here nor there. So let's get into this article. Sony announces its third quarter earnings on February 14th, and they weren't exactly full of glad tidings for the PlayStation fans. For starters, the company revealed it doesn't plan on releasing any new titles for the major franchises for the remainder of 2024, which to me is kind of surprising that Sony doesn't have any major like first party titles lined up for 2024. Okay. Sony execs also said its current gen hardware, the PlayStation 5, is nearing the end of its life cycle. Okay. According to Bloomberg, coverage of the call, the company predicted PS5 sales were slow in the next fiscal year. That means April 2024 until March 2025. Looking ahead, the PS5 will enter the latter stages of its life cycle, Sony SVP Naomi, I can't even pronounce that, said. As such, we will put more emphasis on the balance between profitability and sales. For this reason, we expect the annual sales pace of the PS5 hardware will start to fall from the next fiscal year. And I feel the reason why they're projecting the fall of the sales of the PlayStation 5 is due to the fact that there is no first party titles coming out for it within the next year. It's kind of interesting to like really, okay, we're not expecting any first party games, so our sales are going to go down, which is the exact opposite of what Microsoft was saying last week when they did their whole podcast talking about how first party titles don't push the sale of consoles anymore. Sony is saying, the latter of that, and they're like, no, it does. And that's the same with Nintendo. Nintendo does the same exact thing. That's why Mario and Donkey Kong and Pokemon are exclusive to Nintendo consoles. It's kind of interesting, isn't it? But yet, Xbox says it doesn't. Excuse me. The PlayStation 5 launched in November 2020. What was unusually difficult to obtain for nearly 2 years after its launch, owing to global supply chain shortages, which I still think a lot of it, obviously, it was due to, the Rona and the lack of silicates and stuff like that to build graphics cards and so on and so forth. And then on top of that, what didn't help at all was the fact that people were Bitcoin mining and all that stuff during that time. And we're in 2024 right now, and what's crazy is the graphics card market is still up, but crypto is down. So you would think that people that are crypto mining still would, start to sell these and it would cause the market for graphics cards to go down, but it's not. That's a topic for a whole different video. Anyways, during this time, on the rare occurrence that the PS5s were available for online retailers like Amazon or Best Buy, they would be quickly scooped up by resellers and sold on the secondary market at a hefty markup. Yes, that was one thing that was an issue, was the secondary market would be, they would scoop them up, buy them for $500, and then flip them for like $800 to $1,000, and it just blew my mind. On top of that, the amount of places, Amazon, Walmart, those are two that I can think of off the top of my head now. Best Buy probably did it as well. Would have raffles where you would get thrown into these raffles, and yeah, it was just during that time, it was a crazy, crazy time. Because what's funny is I still have the email and the receipt where I got an Xbox Series X and a PlayStation 5 on the same receipt from Walmart, because I just so happened, I heard they said, hey, we got supplies of both, enter the lottery. I entered the lottery, won it at the same exact time, and I threw it in my cart and purchased it. It was insane. And like, it's crazy to think about it. Like, we're coming to the end of these consoles' life cycles, and like, there was really no big titles, in my opinion, that really, like, first party, titles that like grab you, like, other generations. It's insane. The consoles became far easier for most folks to get a hold of in 2023, though the PlayStation Pres Jim Ryan announced at CES that everyone who wanted a PS5 should have a much easier time finding one in retail globally, starting from this point forward. On the earning call, Sony executives confirmed that 54.7 million PS5s have sold since launch. That's a lot, but it's still considerably outpaced by 139 million Switches sold by Nintendo since 2017. See, this is the thing, though, is like with the Switch has always been, I'd say, let me reword that. At the beginning of the Switch's life cycle, I would say probably the first like 4 or 5 months, it was difficult to get, but it wasn't impossible. Where I feel Sony kind of caused a false, I would definitely say false, like, scarcity when it comes to the PlayStation 5. And I feel they kind of dialed back on how much they were pushing out, and I think it's going to bite them in the ass. Now, granted, last year, supposedly the PlayStation 5 outsold Xbox 3-1, which is crazy to think about. Let's keep going. Typically, consoles have a shelf life of roughly 7 years, though the continued popularity of the Nintendo Switch has proven that that convention isn't exactly ironclad. 100% true. On top of that, the other thing that really surprises me when it comes to the Nintendo Switch is the fact that it's not a very powerful console. You're going there to play games that they're fun. They're just fun. Like, granted, I do slam Pokemon Scarlet and Violet because of some of the graphical eras and all that, but Scarlet and Violet, fun. Pokemon Legends Arceus, fun. Mario Odyssey, fun. The 2 Zelda games that came out for the Switch, amazingly fun. And you didn't need to buy a $500 console to play a game that just was absolutely amazing. Excuse me. So the fact that Sony is thinking about the next gen already wouldn't be surprising in normal circumstances, but it's fair to say that the last few years have been anything but normal circumstances. With the PS5 only becoming widely available at MSRP in the last year or so, it kind of feels like the current generation of games only got started in earnest in 2023. Like I said, I would not be surprised if they push it for another like 4 years. But at the same token, I feel Microsoft's kind of pushing this because guess what? They're allowing a lot of their first party titles and a lot of titles that were exclusive to the Xbox, because you got to go Xbox PC. There's no such thing as exclusive strictly to the console anymore for Xbox. To the PlayStation 5 and Nintendo Switch. Those 4 games, I did a video on it the other day. Go check it out, guys. Shameless plug, I know. But it's just crazy. And right here it's saying, combined with the lack of first party tentpole release in the coming year, this is pretty discouraging. Sony's latest announcement comes as particularly charged moment in gaming. January saw the low bunch of layoffs throughout the industry. February kicked off a spat rumors of Xbox porting games from for rival Sony and Nintendo platforms, which, truth be told, I won't say Microsoft and Nintendo are rivals. Why? They get into bed a lot with each other. They've been very friendly because, like, look at it. Cuphead was originally an Xbox exclusive. And guess what came over to the Nintendo Switch? Cuphead. Just saying. Like, I'd say Microsoft and Nintendo are much more friendly than what, most places will lead on. Or maybe even stop making hardware entirely, which I 100% believe. I'm going to tell you guys right now, the Xbox, the next gen's going to be the most powerful. And yet, I genuinely, in my heart of hearts, think that the Xbox Series X and the S are going to be the last generation of consoles from Microsoft. I'm just putting that out there. Amid slower than expected Game Pass growth, we'll find out more on that topic. Drops, blah, blah, blah. February 15th. Here's hoping Nintendo comes through with the Nintendo Switch 2 reveal sooner than later. We're going full screen. Genuinely, I feel like this generation of consoles has just definitely been really weird. And I think it was definitely driven by the beginning of the life cycle of the Series X and the PS5. When scarcity, the inability to get them, and now we're nearing, I would say this is more of the halfway point. Just because they're saying that they're entering the latter stages of the life cycle for the PlayStation 5, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are. I just think they're just trying to say this to try to pump up like the scarcity. Oh, you guys need to get a PS5. And it is kind of discouraging seeing that there's no first party games coming out for the PlayStation 5 for the next year. But at the same token, could potentially mean that there might be some really big games on the horizon for the years after, maybe a year, 2 years after this, where we might get some really bangers, and I mean bangers of first-party titles from the PlayStation. Comment down below, guys. How do you feel like this? Like, do you think that Sony is kind of like, maybe we should dial back on, on the PlayStation 5? Or do you think that the PlayStation 5 is genuinely coming to the end of its life cycle? Let me know down below. Don't forget, mash that like button. Subscribe. It really does help out the channel a lot. We're on our way to 8,000 subscribers. I can't do this without you guys. And you guys are awesome. That's all I got to say. Anyways, y'all take it easy. Have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you later.